let's talk about the Pellucidar books, or the first two at least, by Edgar Rice Burroughs, At the Earth's Core and Pellucidar. This Gateway Omnibus also includes Tanar of Pellucidar, the third book, which was written, I think, 13 years after the second one or something like that. The first two were actually very early in Burroughs' career, alongside Tarzan and Barsoom, Mars, which I've talked about before here. And he wrote six of them, I think, which is more. He wrote 5 Venus books, something like 12 Martian books, and over 20 Tarzan books, I think. So it's one of the smaller series, but kind of medium-sized, nonetheless. 6 pulp books, 100 to 150 pages. At the Earth's Core and Pellucidar are the first two. Pellucidar is the name of the world. In this, a character, David Innes, who's a classic Burroughs character, like Carson of Venus or like John Carter of Mars, ends up travelling through the Earth's crust into a hollow world inside the world. There's within the crust there is another world facing inward toward the Earth's core, which acts as its sun. And so it's a sort of Stone Age, prehistoric landscape with lots of humans, but who are basically, cavemen, they're described as at some points, and many other species, and particularly dominant species are the Mahars or Mahars or something like that, who are amphibians or reptiles or something like that, who are intelligent and who have gorilla man servitors. There are other species as well, and lots of kind of interesting animals. So David Innes is the hero. He is, as I say, very much a John Carter of Mars type. Anyone who's read much Burroughs knows what these characters are like. They are heroic, brave, clean cut, occasionally scared by actually scary things, but always trying their hardest, never giving up. Usually good at lots of things, though in this case Innes is clear that he's not a very good runner. He's not very fast. He's very good at baseball, though. He's a pitcher, so he's very good at throwing stuff at people. So the kind of depths of character complexity is not really where we're at for this. There are a few things which are what's exciting and fun. I don't say that to criticise those characters. I think trope characters are fine. What I mean is, we're not looking here at, there's such a deep character book. What we're looking at is marvellous invention for the story, for the world particularly. Excellent pace, very pacey plot, sometimes too pacey, but it's just getting going. You're finding out new stuff, you're going new places, crazy stuff's happening, it's exciting, it's not boring. You got 10 chapters at 10 pages each, or whatever it might be, or 8 pages each, and you rattle through them, and something new is happening more or less every page. There is no boredom, and you get bits of other things which are simple but very effective. So in terms of character, there's no great character arcs or character story, but there is often in Burroughs, and certainly here, some quite touching, moving aspect of character, friendship, relationship. And then there's also reflections on the world, which I called in pretty much the first review I ever put up on this channel, the Barsoom reviews I put up. There's a kind of philosophy which is simplistic, but maybe that's too pejorative. It's simple and sometimes silly, and certainly at its worst becomes obnoxious, like the second Venus book, where he briefly dallies with, though he's a bit upset by the idea of eugenics, he's like, oh, maybe eugenics is a good idea. And then goes against that in the future. But, basically he has a generally speaking, quite positive and innocent view of people in the world, and presents it quite earnestly and convincingly. I enjoyed these. These were good examples of those aspects of Burroughs. These are very good. In fact, both these were very fun. And Innes and his friend Perry, an old Scottish engineer who's not so much of a warrior, but they have a really close friendship. And Innes's kind of expressions, because he's basically the narrator here, his expressions of the friendship they have are very powerful, actually. They're very sweet, very pleasant. He also meets other people who are his friends. He has a really interesting insight into the world, and this is not very dissimilar to the Barsoom novels, where even people who are your enemies, even some people who might seem like the worst of enemies, there is usually something, not always, but usually something to admire, or there's a reflection upon the nature of different races, of species, whatever. Races, sorry, I mean in the kind of D&D sense, species. There's certainly, given how pretty clearly, positively, explicitly in this case, you have an analogue to Native Americans presented very positively. You can see that Burroughs has often complex, because he's sometimes chalked up as someone with very bad views on race, but his views on ethnicity, if you want to use that term, are actually pretty nuanced and complex, and by our standards, and I put this in inverted commas, ahead of their time. He's sympathetic to humans. He likes humans. He likes analogues to humans. Think about the Green Martians, or hear about the Grogros ape men. So yeah, they're both good novels. At the Earth's Core is about travelling down, uncovering the world in the Mahars, and trying to find his true love, Diane the Beautiful, who is typically a firecracker female Burroughs character. Again, he gets a bad rap on his female characters, and certainly there's lots of use of tropes of the damsel in distress, but they are very rarely distressed damsels, you understand. Like Deja Thoris, Diane is pretty unflappable. And then Pellucidar is about the kind of later political developments and machinations, and exploring more of the world, including going to the land Thuria under the awful shadow, which is, there is a moon which does itself rotate. It's a small planetoid basically within the atmosphere around the Earth's core, which rotates and therefore has day and night. But below that there is, because it's in essentially sub-geostationary orbit, I don't know how, it's always in the same position. It's rotating at the same speed. It always covers the same place. And yet that's, you see lots of stuff. You see lots of fun ideas, lots of adventure. His pace, as I say, it's never boring. There are points where the pace is silly, what I mean, and where coincidence is relied upon very heavily. And it's interesting how open Burroughs is about this, is that essentially in a vast world, David Innes is constantly bumping into people he knows. And things are constantly pointing him in a particular direction. And sometimes there are in-world explanations given for this as to why something can work, and other times there's not. And this is the same with Barsoom, and it's the same with Venus, which with Amtor, which I've reviewed both of those here. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. But I don't dwell on that. In the sense, it's not a problem for me, because the pace, it's like you're kind of being dragged on a roller coaster and you see something off the side of the roller coaster, or like the decorations on the roller coaster look a bit Yankee, but then you're gone. So you don't think about it anymore. The pace keeps going. They're very fun books, and they're not a bad place to start for Burroughs. I guess, in a sense, I'd probably still say Barsoom seems like the classic, obvious place to start. And I think John Carter is possibly a marginally more engaging character than Innes. The heroes are genuinely acceptable and decent. They're not, they're so boring. Some people will say they're boring. They're not. I think they're good fun. But you're not engaging with your hero on the level of, what's his great psychological torment, or what's his incredibly humorous insight into the world. It's that they are a vehicle for you to see the world. I would say there's slightly more humour at points here, like over building a warship when they don't know what they're doing at one point in the second book. There's more humour here than sometimes you see, I should say, genuinely, in Burroughs' books. But it's still liked. Basically, Innes is a good adventurer. He's an adventuring proxy for the reader, and his moral sense is one that I think most of us will sympathise with. Anyway, that's what I'd say. I recommend it. If you have read it, tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.